President Trump promises the largest tax cut in history. Some Republicans are pushing back on his plan, though. Does a tax overhaul bill have a chance of passing by the end of the year? I'm going to ask Matt Makoviak, political consultant and president of the Potomac Strategy Group. Good morning, Matt. Good to see you.
Good morning. Thanks.
You wrote about this in your weekly column in the Washington Times as being really an imperative that he get this done.
Yeah. No question. Look, I think that a lot of people out in the country that voted for Trump, a lot of traditional Republicans are frustrated with the lack of legislative accomplishments.
Right.
The president's done some things with his own power, obviously his cabinet, Supreme Court nominations, executive orders, regulatory relief, but the legislative accomplishments, at least the major ones, haven't been there. And so the failure to repeal, replace Obamacare, now they're going to turn their attention to tax reform. They're going to try and get there by the end of the year. I do think that Republicans are more unified on tax reform than they were on health care.
Is he building the coalition necessary to get it done?
So far, I think the signs are yes. Now, there are still some hurdles. One hurdle is the removal of the deduction for state and local sales tax. So in high tax states benefit from having that deduction as part of tax reform. You're going to need actual Republicans from Democratic states in the House, California, New York, New Jersey, to support the underlying bill, and so they're saying they have to have that. So there are a couple things like that. The score, how it's going to affect the deficit, is going to be a potential issue. But look, I think there's enough momentum and unanimity and unity on this. The Republicans know they have to do this by the end of the year. I think that the House bill will pass by Thanksgiving. Whether the Senate does it before December 31st or before January 30th or something like that remains to be seen. But I do think tax reform is likely, but there are some hurdles.
Do you think that's an important stand? Like, if this doesn't happen, what did he do in his first year in office?
Yeah, so the risk here is if they don't pass tax reform, then they've gone the entire first calendar year without a major legislative accomplishment. Nothing on Obamacare, nothing on tax reform. And of course, next year is an election year. It's going to be very hard to do much legislatively in 2018.
So let's talk about the elections that are coming up. Seems like we're always in an election cycle, but Steve Bannon, the president's former chief strategist, is now throwing a monkey wrench into basically a lot of these Senate races that seem like they were safe Republican districts, and backing, renegade outsiders who would compete for these seats.
Yeah, what's so strategically questionable about that is if you look at the Senate, they failed on Obamacare not because of anything other than 3 Republicans saying they couldn't support either of the versions that the Senate considered. And if you look at it, they need to win Democrats on tax reform. Just a few would make a huge difference. You've got 10 Democrats running from states that Donald Trump won in November that are up for re-election in 2018. So it would seem to me it'd be a much wiser investment to focus on those 10 Democratic senators running in from difficult states, Montana, North Dakota, West Virginia, states like that, states Trump won, rather than trying to target incumbent Republicans.
Does Bannon have an agenda that's separate from the president's?
That's a great question. I think Bannon thinks that he understands the Trump platform better than anyone. And
better than Trump?
Yeah, better than Trump, probably. Yeah. The populism, the nationalism. Bannon's goals are not aligned with the Republican Party's goals. I think that's pretty clear. And so the goal here is to get from 52 Republicans in the U.S. Senate to 55 or 57. The map is there. But what Bannon's doing, I think, could potentially put the majority for the Senate in play, something no one thought was possible in January, and something would have huge ramifications in the second 2 years of Trump's first term. Judges, bringing articles of impeachment. There could be a range of things that could happen if the Democrats take the Senate back.
So basically, it's going to continue to be interesting.
It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be a very interesting election cycle, and there's a lot that we have to see how it plays out.
Okay, thanks a lot. Appreciate you joining us here.